Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited to be able to interview the amazing Lindsay Weirich, who is the new instructor for our Watercolor Playdate class. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so exciting, and this class is it looks amazing. I'm so excited for folks at home to get to know you and get some kind of maybe a couple little hints about what's going to happen in class a little bit, maybe. So that's exciting.
Sure, yeah, it's been so fun, especially going back and editing all the lessons this week. I think it's going to be great for both beginners that maybe have been a little nervous, maybe they've dabbled a bit, but they don't really know where to start, to get some basic techniques and some color theory and some, like how to do washes and some ideas for backgrounds. And then for more advanced painters that are like, well, I love watercoloring, maybe I haven't done it in a while, or I also like to work it into some card making or some scrapbooking because I'd like to start that hobby too, but maybe not buy a bazillion pattern papers. I'd like to use what I have and maybe merge it over to that. It's a great introduction that way. And it's also all encapsulated into this one session. So even if you've never picked up a brush before, you'll have the supplies right there to do what you need to do. And then when you're done, you're going to have a stack of cards that you can send off to family and friends. So even if you decide, okay, maybe watercolor's not for me, but I got the stack of, 12 or 20 cards at the end of it, well, you've kind of like, I guess, made your money back or, compared to what you would spend to buy a bunch of cards. And then you can be like, okay, I did that. Okay, that's great. Either I love it, I want to do more, or oh, it's fun. Maybe it's not exactly my cup of tea. We all have those projects
Yes.
that, but it's nice to see something all the way to the end. And then, you can go on from there, or you could be like, okay, been there, done that.
And I love you saying about like making your own kind of patterns and maybe that's it. Maybe you're not into painting like nature scenes or realistic scenes, but maybe you love making backgrounds. Maybe that's like your jam and that's what you take from the class is you love backgrounds and you're going to learn some cool tips and tricks on how to do those as well.
Oh yeah, and you'll be able to alter the things you have because like one thing I love to do is to upcycle things and take basic junk that you wouldn't necessarily have a use for that you'd just be throwing away and using it as an embellishment. So, I love to collect white trims like laces and ribbons and pom-pom trims, and you can dye all those with watercolors and you can dye old book pages and then like emboss them or die cut them and do all sorts of things like that. So there's a lot of kind of springboarding ideas where you could be like, oh, okay, that's a great use for this. That's something I could use that for. And I just wanted to have people see how many different ways they could use their supplies so they don't just sit on and collect dust on the shelf because it doesn't feel good to buy supplies that you don't use. And every time you see them, you think, fantasy Lindsay was going to do that project, but reality Lindsay can't get it done. If you know how to if you have some ideas just to get you started, then you will oftentimes just keep on going. It's like if you set a timer and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes, I'm going to clean this counter for 5 minutes. When it goes off, you're going to see what progress you made and you're probably going to keep doing it till it's all clean. The same thing with painting. You just got to get that, you got to kind of start on a hill and then you start rolling down and getting momentum and you can keep on creating.
And so we've jumped right in because Lindsay and I are super excited about this class. For those that maybe have not seen a YouTube video or taken a class with you before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. My name is Lindsay Weirich, as you so nicely introduced me. I have the blog and YouTube channel called The Frugal Crafter, and I started that blog back in, 2008, because I had been posting on like the different galleries online like Splitco Stampers and Art Friends and different little like kind of forum places before. And one of the places I had posted a lot went out of business. And then I was so bummed because all of the cards that I had archived there were just poof, gone overnight. And I also had been submitting my artwork for publication at different crafting and scrapbooking and painting magazines. And it's a slow go to do that. I finally did get some stuff published, but I figured, well, instead of sending all this out and hoping somebody picks it up, why don't I just start a blog and post my articles every day, and then anyone can enjoy them for free. Because what I didn't realize when I was submitting to publications is that they generally don't pay you, and if they do pay you, it's not very much, and you have to wait before you can submit to somebody else once you submit to one publication. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna just do this on my own turf, and then I can have complete control over what I publish, and I can have complete control over what I say. And I mean, I was hoping that one day I would be able to write a book called The Frugal Crafter, where it would all be recipes on how to make your own art and craft supplies. But you start down one path and then the road veers off and you end up doing something else. And yeah, that's I guess an abbreviated story or part of my journey anyway.
And this wasn't, you didn't start out to be a professional artist. So how was
Well,
that kind of journey?
Well, I would say when I was a child, I wanted to be an artist, but my parents were definitely not down with that plan. And I went to broadcasting school, and I worked in TV and radio for a few years. And I saw an ad in a newspaper, and it said "artists wanted." And it was really early in the morning, one of those overnight shifts that you get stuck on when you're at the bottom of the ladder in radio. And I called the number, and it was a woman that owned a studio, the Art Studios of Bangor, and she needed somebody to teach her like toddler art class. And so I met with her and she hired me. And then I asked her if I could make my own classes and give her a portion of them, the portion of the revenue. And she said, absolutely, you can use it the place anytime it's not being used for classes. And so I built up a class roster, and then I got hired as an art director at a nonprofit. It was right down the road, downtown, right in downtown Bangor. So it was very convenient, and I worked there full time for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years, maybe a year or two. I can't remember. When you're in your early 20s, like a year seems like a decade, And then when my classes started to build up at the studio, I went part time at the nonprofit that I was working at, and I was there long enough, like enough that I could keep my health insurance basically, and I wasn't married yet, so I wasn't on my husband's. And then I think probably once my husband and I got married, I quit the part-time job and just went all in on the studios. And then the owner didn't want to do it anymore. She had she was having a lot of challenges with her special needs children. She's like, I just want to wash my hands of this. I don't want to do this anymore. And so she turned it over to me, and I ran that business until I became pregnant with twins. And then I had one baby. I had a baby, and I would bring him to work with me. And I had a nanny that would sit at the. She actually would babysit when I was teaching and trade for classes. So she would babysit all my kids when I was teaching the kids classes, and then when my adult classes were usually in the evening. So my husband would come home from work. He would swing through downtown on his way, pick up the baby, and then I would teach my adult classes. And so she got free classes and I got a free babysitter. So that was great because, I was a starving artist, I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was a lot of fun. I felt like a millionaire back then because I was living the life I wanted to live. And then when the twins came along, I was just like, there's no way. I have 2 arms. I can't get 3 babies up these steps, because I was on the second floor of a downtown studio. There's no parking, parking from the parking garage. It's a young person's game. Yes. It's a child-free person's game. And I'm just like, yeah, I need to put this idea on hold for a while. And yeah, stayed home to take care of babies for a couple of years. Then I'm like, I wonder if I could get any of these scrapbook pages published. I wonder if I could get any of my jewelry stuff published. I said, I'll give it a year. If I haven't gotten anything accepted in a year, then I know it's not meant to be. I'm not cut out for it. And it was on the 11th month that Bead Trends picked up one of my jewelry designs for publication. And I was like, I'll submit several things a month for a year. Yep. And at least I'll know that I've gave it a fair shot. And yeah, it worked out month 11. And it was always a thrill to see your work in print, but the thrill wears off, just when you start calculating all the work that you're doing and you're trying to like bring up little kids, and it's, the time you're spending on those articles is taking away from the time that you're with them. And of course the motherhood guilt and all of that. So it's like, what, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to spend time writing, it's going to be published on my blog. I just, my time is too precious to send it out there into the world for a maybe. And I think more people should really believe in themselves and not need that external validation of the gatekeepers. Of course, there's no magazines around it. There's very few magazines around anymore, but you don't need someone to give you permission that you can create or that you can do your thing. Just do it,
And
Do it and figure it out. The best way to learn how to build a house is to build a house, my father used to say. He was a
yeah.
contractor. So it's like, yeah, you want to learn how to do something, just do it and you'll learn on the way.
And I love that you set like a static goal though. It's like 12 months, okay, this is, and I love it squeaking right under under the line. That's how I generally work too, right under that line. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. And what inspiration as well, that you had the ability to have a blog, and because back in the day, blogs weren't a thing and YouTube didn't exist. And so it's great now for those aspiring artists like yourself, that have that resource to be able, like you said, to claim your work and put it out there for yourself. And when you said you lost all those things, I'm like, oh no, like putting them on the hosting site, and you don't lose it that way. You
Yeah.
have it on your channel, you have it on your blog, which is great.
Yeah, and really, I know like a lot of people would say blogging is dead, and I felt like when I got into it in 2008, I was kind of like, it's like, oh, why didn't I do this years ago? Because I felt like I was so far behind. Um, but now it's a lot of the people that were blogging back then have completely dropped out of it, and I don't feel that behind anymore. And I got into YouTube at the right time, so I didn't feel like I was behind. I would feel like, man, to start it now, it would be more difficult, but I would recommend having a blog rather than just relying on social media because you have that is on your turf, and a change in the algorithm is not going to affect how many people see your blog. The people subscribe to your blog to get an email. There's no algorithm that's controlling whether they stop serving those emails or whether they stop showing your subscribers what you're posting. And social media is very the heavy hand of the algorithm really does control social media. And it's kind of like, and I was thinking about it because I was trying to think of my mantra for the year, and for me it's going to be consume less, create more, but specifically consume less crap and create more of substance, because the algorithms will push the junk food basically towards you. It's like if you've got a bowl of french fries or a bowl of salad in front of you, if you're just purely choosing from what feels good, what tastes good, what do I want, you're probably going to go for the french fries or the sweets or the junk. And the same thing with, I find myself, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but like if I'm on YouTube, oh, someone's got a haul, I want to see what's new. I want to, oh, what's a new shiny thing? What's a new shiny thing? That is not going to feed my brain. That's just going to give me that temporary like hit of dopamine, like, ooh, new thing, new thing, new thing, and it's just junk food, you know? And that's what the algorithm's gonna serve, because that's what we click on, that's what we watch, it's what, it's, they don't care if we grow, they don't care if we become better people. The algorithm does not care. They don't want us to be a better person. They don't want us to be the type of person that watches a tutorial, learns something, and goes and does the thing off of the internet. They want us like captivated on the internet, eyes glued to the screen, consuming, consuming, consuming. So if you have a blog, or a website where you can collect a mailing list and you can directly reach out to the people that choose to be reached out to, then you're never going to be a slave to the algorithm. Now that said, when I first started my blog, I was getting around 100,000 views, not right off the bat, but like probably about a year into it, I was getting about 100,000 views a month. And then I started adding video embeds to my blog. I didn't want to pay for the upgrade on my blog package to do video, so I looked for a free hosting site, which YouTube is a free hosting site, and I really didn't know anything about it. I figured it was probably, pretty sus, honestly. I was like, I don't know what people are posting on YouTube, but I'm just going to post my art videos and embed them. And then I was getting comments over there, and that was growing. And it seems like when that took off, and I probably nurtured it more, put more attention into it, but that grew much faster than my blog, and the blog views slowed and the YouTube views gained. And but I think it was also a migration of people getting more comfortable with that platform and watching and just going there directly instead of to the blogs that they followed, and going to Instagram instead of following something on their blog, they're following people on Instagram or whatever, Facebook, whatever platform they like now. And then when you start following people there, though, the platform's going to be like, what do we think was going to keep her on here longer? This, bad news story, is that going to keep them watching and clicking? This, terrible, it seems like the more outrageous something is, the more negative it is, the more people want to stay there and be glued and watch because of, our lizard brain negativity bias. And if you're on your blog, you can keep your blog all positive, and you just don't have to worry about competing with a million other articles that are, more sensational, that are going to pull the eyes away.
And it is with social media too. It seems like just as one thing gains popularity, there's a new thing. So there's a new there's a new place to go. And we also as consumers seem to want it faster. So we used to love
Mhm.
blogs. We'd go read every detail and look at every picture and every up close up picture. And now we're like Instagram, we want it in like 3 seconds. We want to go through. We want mass over, I think, we want quantity over having the ability to invest more. Really, I think a lot of times now, I don't know if people are busier or how that trend is shaping up, but we seem to want it faster. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going. It's the digital consumption is definitely going shallower. When like I think of when Netflix first came out, and we were getting the DVDs in the mail. We would pick our gotta carefully pick our 3 movies that we're gonna have sent to us, and then it would come in the mail and we'd watch it right away. We wouldn't be like, well, let's see what's on TV before we commit to this. It's like, no, we paid for this. We want to watch it so we can send it back and get our next
yeah,
thing. And now it's like I'll sit down and I'll put Hulu on or Netflix or whatever, and I'll spend my entire TV watching time scrolling through because I don't want to miss out on something
yeah,
better. And rather than committing to something and enjoying it and going deep with something, we're just kind of skimming the surface. And then we end up consuming nothing of value. We end up just getting the glossy images, and that's it. It's like probably like when magazines came along, the books, oh, who wants to read a book when you could just flip through a magazine and see the pictures? And it's really sad because there's very little satisfaction in that. It's like eating empty calories. It tastes good in the moment, but then we feel bad afterwards and there's no satisfaction. And I know I feel awful after I've spent any considerable amount of time scrolling. It's like I could have done something. I could have made art. I could have read a book. I could have even watched a movie, but no, I've just been scrolling through. And it's a habit, and it's so against the grain now to go against that habit. Even if you go to Pinterest to try to find bloggers to follow, a lot of times the stuff you see on Pinterest is been heavily curated by like people are putting it on Pinterest so they can bring people to their blogs, so they can see a million advertisements. I don't know how many times I've clicked on one of those articles on Pinterest thinking, oh, I'd love to read that article. It sounds great. Only to have like I can't even see the article because there's so many pop-up ads, and it's so frustrating. I understand the desire to build an income from your blogging, but if people can't even get to the content, I mean, how are they making any money? Don't you? I think people have to click on those ads for them to make money. I don't see who in their right mind would click on any of those unless it's on accident trying to get rid of them.
yeah.
I don't know. Darn kids today! Get off my lawn.
It does. There is a shift. There is a shift. Like it's cool, you love it. And then you're like, I could have
Yeah.
invested my time in myself. And instead, I mean, and I have those too where you just zone out and your hand just keeps moving. And at the end, have I gotten some inspiration? Possibly. But do I have something tangible that, oh, I read this book or I did a load of
Mhm.
laundry or because those things have to get thrown in there too. But or did I make a
Yeah.
card that I really love? And it's like no, and it's one of those things, and especially for creative types, sometimes you can get over bombarded and over
Hmm.
stimulated with so much inspiration that as well we talk about crafty droughts, but I think sometimes overstimulation can also cause you don't know what to do, like you were just saying, like you're almost frozen because you're like I don't know, what do I do first, where do I start?
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think these classes are great because it really focuses in for a set period of time. And if for some reason you have to work or something, they're all recorded, so you get to keep them. But you can always go back to it as well. So if you are a beginner colorist and you're like, I remember that tip, I think it was day one, let me go back. And you can. And it's like having Lindsay in your office space with you again in person. It's that kind of same feeling because you get to pause it and stop it and go over those tips as well, which is very exciting. How did you find Altenew?
Oh, that's a really interesting story. So, back in the day, I used to purchase a lot of my craft supplies because, well, we found out that we're both in
Yes,
Maine. We like live
20
probably
minutes.
15 minutes from each other, which is crazy. So there wasn't a lot of craft supply stores up here. So I used to shop at this little store quite a bit called Custom Crops, and it was a friend of mine told me about it because that was back in the day when the Cricut machine was brand new. and they were selling their cartridges for $40, and those were like $90 in the craft store. And so and there was actually some deal where you bought two and get one free, and so I grabbed a few cartridges. But anyways, I found that store, and they had a really quirky selection, and I really liked it. And then the store got bought by this wonderful woman named Jody, and she changed her name to Hallmark Scrapbook, and she emailed me and said, I just want to let you know that I bought this store. I know you have been a shopper with us for a long time, and I appreciate whenever you've used anything and you've like made a video about it. I'd love to send you a few things as a thank you. And she sent me this Altenew set, a couple Altenew sets. One was like a layered roses, and the other one was these butterflies. And there was like they were you stamped them in layers as well, and they were really pretty, just kind of like a brushstroke type flower. And that's how I first learned about Altenew, and I think they were probably pretty new at the time.
So.
And they were just really high quality, nice. I love it when I open up my stamps and they have this really kind of like nice little sweet kind of smell to them, and I know it's the good stuff. It's not like the cheap silicone they can be fine for different circumstances, but when you've got like a solid area of like, not rubber but the clear material to stamp with, if it's a silicone, it wants to bead up, but you got the good stuff, then it will actually hold the ink and stamp well. So that was my first introductory experience with Altenew, and it was good.
And they smell fab. The second you open that package, it wafts out that new photopolymer, and then after you smell that, I'm always like, oh, the possibilities. Like, it's just exciting because you can go so many places with them. And that's seen in your kits, obviously. Like, there's so much in these kits. How did you go about, what were you thinking kind of when you built the kits?
I really wanted it to be versatile because I'm not somebody that likes really specific. I mean, sometimes if you find just the right thing and it's very specific to you, that's great. But I wanted to find something that was going to have appeal to a broader audience, and also, no matter what your style is, I wanted them to be, I don't really say vague, but I wanted them to be versatile enough that they would work with all sorts of different, like if you already had a bunch of stamps, you already had pattern papers, you already had this, that, and the other, that these things were not going to duplicate what you already had, but I wanted them to be versatile enough that you're going to keep using them in 5 years, in 10 years. They're not going to be like, that was a trend, they're going to throw that, going to donate that, because when am I going to use leaves again? It's like, you're always going to use leaves, you're always going to use flowers. I didn't want to have anything that looked too like stylized or too definite to a specific time period. I wanted it to be something that felt timeless, and I love organic elements. I love vines and leaves and flowers and text and script and things like that. And I wanted something that pretty much any crafter that likes my style would be able to weave into their own style and their own products. And I also wanted to choose things that were pretty new so that it would be unlikely somebody already owned one of the stamps or embossing folder or stencils or whatnot. And that's why the beginner, or what do you call it, basic set, is it called basic?
Regular.
Is that what it's called?
The regular, yep.
Regular set doesn't have the paints in it because if you've been following my channel, if you've been following along with me, you already have watercolors, you probably already have gouache, you probably already have ink pads. So I wanted to get those tools that you wouldn't have otherwise in that kit. And then if you're like, oh my gosh, I just found out about watercolor, I want to try, I don't have anything, they could go with the deluxe set and get the watercolors and get the gouache and be that way. There is white gouache in the regular set because I figured a lot of watercolors probably don't have gouache, but if you take the white gouache, you can use the colors in whatever watercolors you have to tint them and make an opaque paint for the gouache projects that we do. So I'm a big fan of versatility and being able to keep a light kit if you want to. I mean, I also like to collect supplies, so don't get me wrong, I do enjoy that, but I find that a lot of times the more you have, the less you do. And whenever I go to a crop or I go to a retreat, if I bring bags and bags of stuff, I will spend all the time just trying to decide what to work with or gabbing with my friends. If I have just a small kit, I can gab with my friends and just use those few things I brought and get way more done. So that's kind of also part of the part of the method behind choosing the supplies. I didn't want to overwhelm anyone. I didn't want it to be so expensive that it would prevent people from taking the class that really wanted to. But I wanted to have enough variety in there that people were going to find something that really sparked their joy and sparked their interest and got them crafting. And also, the thing about having a stamp is that it's a little bit of a framework. You know, you don't have to come up with the idea from scratch. You've got the lines. You don't have to be like, oh, I want to take this class, but I don't know how to draw. I want to take this class, but I've never done this before. You've got a little bit of a helping hand along the way. And yeah, I wanted it to really be welcoming and inviting to anybody that wants to come and try.
And I think the great thing about this is you offer, I call them ladders for every level. So if it's a beginner, you're offering lots of wonderful steps. An advanced person could come in and say, oh, I can draw that. Let me draw that out. But we have all kinds of different things for all the different abilities of crafters that are coming in. Some have, I know, a lot of folks are like, oh, I'm signing up for this. I'm so excited. And a lot of them they've worked with watercolor, they've worked with gouache, but they want more. They want to know more
Mm-hmm.
and how to apply it, which is great. What is something you're really excited about that you're going to cover in this class that you think everybody needs to know? Like a topic.
Oh, color theory. Absolutely color theory. I think that's where a lot of people don't feel very confident. Maybe they learned it in school, they learned how to mix colors, or maybe they even took an adult ed class, or maybe they even took a college course and they went over color theory, but they never quite felt like they spoke the language yet. And they didn't want to ask because they didn't want to. The older you get, the less inclined you are to want to ask a question. And if you're taking a class with a bunch of other adults, you're like, well, I don't want to be the dumb that doesn't know how to make purple, or I don't want to, why do I have brown? Why do I have gray? I mixed blue and red. Why isn't it purple? Why is it gray? And, kind of learning about the undertones and the color friends and why, you don't always get green when you mix yellow and blue. Sometimes you get this kind of like drab gray color, it's like, what's going on? Why isn't this working for me? And breaking it down into very simple, easy to follow steps that you can rewind if you want to, or you can ask a question. When this class is live, I'll be right there with you. I'll be in the classroom, in the forum with you to answer your questions. So please don't be shy. There's no stupid question. And if you're thinking about it and you're asking it, just know there's probably 100 people that were not brave enough to ask that question that you're going to ask me. And having that up, look through other people's questions too, because that, it might be something that you didn't even think about. It's like, oh, that's a really great question. I never thought about that.
Yep.
And you're going to get much more richness and much more depth from the class just by looking at what other people ask and post too. So take every resource, it's all there for you. And my goal is for you to be a better painter and for you to feel good about what you're creating and to create more and to get your ideas out on paper, because watercolor is so versatile. You can do a million things with it. Then you add an opaque medium like gouache, then you've just multiplied what you can do with that even more. And then you add your stamps, you've multiplied it even more. And that's what a good supply is. It doesn't make the other things you own redundant. It makes the other things you own more useful. So think about that as you're adding to your stash. Will this just replace something I already have? Or is this going to make what I already have much more versatile and much more useful?
What would you say? We've kind of talked a little bit about beginner and advanced. What would you say to a crafter that said, well, I've bought that beautiful 24 pan set, but I'm scared to take the papers off? What would you say to them?
The only wasted art supply is the art supply that never gets used. If you are on your deathbed, or heaven forbid, you pass away, do you want to have used that watercolor, or do you want the person that pays 5 cents for it at your estate sale to use that paint? You bought and paid for it. They're not going to have any problem tearing those wrappers off, let me tell you. Or who knows? I've told people, you know what? When the good Lord calls me home, you better be getting that dumpster that's in my driveway, because my husband's probably going to chuck all this stuff. So you want to go there and grab it. But I want to make sure that every pan that I own is unwrapped and every tube of watercolor paint has been used and every pad of paper has been broken into, because I bought and paid for it. I want to be the one to use it, not somebody that buys it for a quarter after I'm dead at a yard sale.
I just remember that. I remember when I first got those, I started with our 36 pan set. And I felt good. And then I looked at that one and it came and it was so fancy. And I'm like, it says artist on it. I'm a card maker. I'm not an artist. And so that was like a mind thing that I had to, like you said, is either you're going to give it away and you bought it to enjoy, and you're either going to give it away unused, or you're going to use it. So that's, I think, good
Hmm.
advice, because it is scary when you see the word artist sometimes, because you're like, oh, I'm just a crafter, so that
Well, and
word.
sometimes they're so pretty. Your
Yes.
supplies are so pretty that you don't want to mess them up, and they're all wrapped up like little presents.
Yes.
But I'll tell you a tip about that 24 pan set is that the wrappers are actually stickers. So what I recommend you do is take a big sheet of watercolor paper, pull off those wrappers, and stick them down to a piece of watercolor paper, and leave room underneath it to swatch. And I go over this in the class, but draw a black line with a marker under there, and then swatch right under each color. And then you've got the color name, you've got the pigment numbers, you've got all the information you need if you want to, like, oh my gosh, I love this color yellow. What pigment is that? I want to buy a big tube of it so I'm never going to run out of it as long as I live. You can do that. And then you're also going to learn more information about that, because every time you look at that swatch, you're going to see that color name, you're going to see those pigment numbers, you're going to just be reinforced. You're going to see that that color is transparent. I can see my black line all the way through it. It's very transparent. Or it's a little bit hazy. It's a little bit opaque. So, and I know that because I can see my line. What did Lindsay say? If the color's opaque, it's more likely to make mud. Okay, if I mix my orange with that yellow, I'm going to get a more muddy color. But if I mix it with that yellow, I'm going to get a more bright color. It just it reinforces what you know about your paints. And the more you use them, the better you're going to get with them. So, and you're not going to get good at painting unless you paint. You're not going to get good with those watercolors unless you open them up and unwrap
No,
them. They're going to keep making more. Altenews going to keep making
they
paint,
will.
so
Yes.
you can buy another set if you need one for your museum of art supplies that you never open and never touch, that stays in the box like a Star Wars figurine. You can buy two, buy another one, and put that on your shelf and appreciate it, enjoy it, look at it, fondle it, whatever, and have the set that you're going to use, because you're not going to be a better painter unless you use your
And
supplies.
I personally was like, how did I not do this for so, I love them. They are so amazing. And I'm like, how did I for so long talk myself out of this? So I think there's going to be a lot of um, tough painting love, meaning get your colors out of the tube, out of the pan, from Lindsay, which is great for the beginners. And I think that's just amazing, because it's like, oh, an artist is telling me to do it. It's okay now because an artist is telling me to do it. So, and
I know I should. James Gurney, who's a famous plein air painter and illustrator, he actually has this thing called an artistic license. It's like you could print it out. I think you could print it out on his website. It's an artistic license, and you can put it in your wallet, so you have your artistic license, and then you can paint whatever you want, do whatever you want, because you got the license to.
that is awesome. The other thing I've really loved is you have so many tips and tricks, especially about upcycling, like you were saying, that help you in your projects. I know you've mentioned one with a chopped up gift card, that, and all the things you can, like, I do it to re-ink pads, but just a snippet, a sneak peek. What are some things you can do with a chopped up gift card?
Chopped up credit card is my favorite tool. It's absolutely free. You can use it when you've, like, say you've painted a leaf. You can use the like, you chop it up so you have a bunch of little wedges. Use the corner to scrape veins into the wet paint, and the paint will settle into those scratches and look like really, really fine dark lines you've painted. You can use it when you're painting a birch tree. You can scrape the color across the tree so you get that papery birch look. You can use a rounded edge of a gift card to wipe away lines. So if your paper, you've done a wash and your paper has gone kind of, it's not shiny wet anymore, it's kind of like matte, just like a satin sheen to it, you can scrape out light areas. So maybe you want to scrape out some light blades of grass, or you want to just scrape some highlights out of some rocks. I love to paint like seascapes and landscapes with rocks in them. You can use that to kind of highlight. You can use it to scrape the salt off of a background if you've thrown salt into a wash, to get that kind of starburst or snowflake texture. After it dries, you can use that to scrape off the salt, because it kind of wants to stick to your paper a little bit. It's useful for so many things. You can use it to, if you decide to really get into watercolor, maybe you buy a block of paper, which is it's like a pad of paper that's sealed on all four
Yep.
sides, except it's got a little gap. You can slide that into the gap, and you can use that to cut off to cut off the top sheet of paper and work on the next one, you can use it to pick up paint off your palette and apply it that way. You like kind of squeegee it on your paper for some different effects. There's a lot you can do, and there's so many supplies around your house. If you have a magic eraser, for cleaning, and who wants to clean? That's no fun. It's way more fun to paint. You can put your magic eraser. You can go over. You can do a background, let it dry, put a stencil down it. You can go over it with magic eraser, lift up that design. You can get a mistake. Say you've done a beautiful painting, and you get that white. Oh, those coloring books you have that have the you guys sell that's on watercolor
Yep.
paper. So you've painted it up, it's beautiful. You've left that pristine white background, then you get a splotch of paint on that background. Use a magic eraser to erase that splotch in the background. There's so many tools, and the more you create, the more you're going to look at everything in your environment with fresh eyes, like an artist, and you're like, I wonder if I could paint on that stamp and stamp with that. I wonder if I could do this. I wonder. And the best thing to do is when you have a wonder is to actually put it into practice and try it and do it and see if it works or not. Sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't, but there is no failure in art. You either learn, or you either succeed first try, or you learn. You learn what does work. You learn what doesn't work. There is no failure, and there is no wasting unless you're just leaving all your materials pristinely on the shelf, never to be touched. That's the only waste.
Yes, in the museum, which we don't want a museum. We want used supplies.
Yeah.
And I think that's the great thing too, is that yes, there are the lessons, there are the PDFs, is the live session, but beyond that, you kind of get to see your process as well. And these tips and tricks that maybe you wouldn't plan on talking about them, but especially like in the live session, somebody will ask a question, another tip or trick might come out that you may not have. So I think that's the great thing about these classes, as well as the projects you see here with Lindsay will be shown no place else, just here. Only place you can get these projects is with Lindsay in this amazing Altenew class that she has designed. It's absolutely fabulous, and we're very excited to have you join us in the class. So one final question, what are you working on right now for yourself?
Oh boy. Well, I have to say, actually, I just finished up a couple of freelance projects for clients, so I can't really talk about those. But I this time of year, I tend to need to reset, and I just put away a huge canvas order in my storage room, which used to be where I used to film. It's beyond that wall, and I call it the room of hoard because it's like all of my supplies. So I have to deal with the room of hoard a little bit. I did put away my big canvas order, but it's not optimal. I feel like I need a whole reorganization. So I feel like that's the stage of my journey I am right now, is just kind of organizing and regrouping and resetting. I'm always doing little sketches in my sketchbook and doing. I started a challenge on Instagram called the Sketchbook Floozy Challenge because I have like 20 sketchbooks going. So I'm such a floozy. I can't commit to one sketchbook. So I created the Sketchbook Floozy Challenge, and when I take some reference photos, I just share them, and I'm like, "Hey floozies, paint this and tag me," and hopefully it encourages us all to use up our sketchbooks a little bit. But I don't have any big projects planned right now. I've got to reset and organize and get myself squared away right now.
Organization is a huge, don't underestimate that, because it's something part of our crafty lives. We're, as you said, we see a haul, we buy the things, we get the things home, and then you have to put them someplace. And so the reorganization seems to be a constant evolution throughout our crafty process as well. Do you ever have to, when you're organizing, do you ever have to stop and you're like, okay, this idea is too good, I just have to do it? Do you ever have to break to create?
Oh yeah, in fact, that's because like when I was a kid, my mother used to, if I was say on board, which you never say that to your parents, but she used to go, well, go upstairs and clean your cleaset, and I'd start cleaning, and then I'd find some toy to play with. So yeah, that definitely happens. I definitely will become inspired. While I'm cleaning, I'll find something. Sometimes I find something, it's like, what did I buy this for? And my friend Tracy was like, Lindsay, you need to do a series called What is this thing and why did I buy it? And I'm like, that is such a great idea. So I do try to like think about that as I'm cleaning. If I find some like gem like that, what did I buy that for? Of course, yeah, the downside is that if I find that I love it, it's so totally awesome, nobody else can get it, because it's like long discontinued. But it's kind of funny. It's because I'll have a friend that like she'll send me a text, she'll be like, Lindsay, why did I buy this? I don't remember what I bought this for. So yeah. I feel like also before I start any big projects, I need to do like a big clean. Like if I'm developing a class or I'm going to be working on a whole new project, it's almost like I can't get my thoughts in order unless my area is clean. And um, once a year, I do the studio defrag, and that's where I pull everything out. It's kind of like the KonMari method where you pull everything into a pile and you decide if it sparks joy or not. But for me, it's like I pull everything out and like I'll put all my canvases together. I'll put all my markers together because like you'll get a set and you'll stick it here or there because you don't have quite enough room where your dedicated storage is. And then throughout the year, you use things up. So like you may have a box of canvases but only have two left, and but it's a box that fits 12. So you can get rid of that box and you can consolidate. So it's kind of like back in the day when your computer would need a defragging because you'd have all these little bits of open space that need to be pushed together so you could store bigger things. That's kind of what I do in the studio. It's the big defrag. And if I've got something with a tail end, I'm like, I'm not going to use that. Or if I see I've got a lot of this and I'm never going to use it up before it goes bad, then I'll donate it. So it just kind of keeps it from being too overwhelming. And I need to be organized. I need to be able to find whatever I need in 30 seconds or I'm not going to use it. So it kind of keeps me sane. And I feel like I've got one of those minds that's constantly spinning. So I need to be focused on something. I need to be doing something all the time or it kind of drives me crazy.
And we can see by your space in back of you, it looks like you have a lot of things visible to yourself as well. Does that help you in creating, being able to see your supplies, knowing it's there? Does that help?
Yeah, I do like to have things visual, but to be completely honest, and I believe in full transparency, this is my filming area, so it is also set up so it looks nice on camera. I don't want anyone to think that that is the most inefficient way to store paint in the world behind me there.
It's beautiful though.
That's my decoy paint. That's my decoy paint. I don't use that paint. The paint I use is actually, I got a big tub of acrylics over there that I pick from. That's actually tacked up on foam core. So if I take a bottle off, probably they're all going to start falling off of it. So that's total decoy. I do use those markers though. Those are all my open stock random markers I have together. But yeah, I like to have stuff out. I find it's inspiring, but it can be also overwhelming if it starts to get cluttered up, and then you can just go blind to it and just not even see it. Like there's a pile of of a particular home improvement project supplies sitting in the kind of breezeway or the little hallway between the garage and the house, and you just stop seeing it after a while. And I can have a stack of projects that I want to do or products I want to review, and if I don't get to them within a month, then I just like don't even see them anymore. It's like they're not even there, except subconsciously they're there being this kind of devil on my shoulder and bringing me down and being like, how come you never finish anything you start, and starts like sending out negative vibes at me. So that's another reason I have to go through and reset. It's like, okay, Lindsay, Fantasy Lindsay bought that thing. Is Reality Lindsay going to use it? Is Reality Lindsay going to review it? If you're going to review it, then let's do it, because that should be if you're going to review it, let's do it.
I love Fantasy Lindsay and Reality Lindsay. I love them. They're fabulous. That's a great in here. Okay, we had the best of intentions, but are we going to pull this off? Do we feel like we're going to pull this off or not? That's a good.
Right. It's like, who bought that big bag of kale? Yes. Was that Reality Lindsay or was that Fantasy Lindsay? Luckily, Reality Lindsay got a juicer, so we can make that kale disappear real quick.
I just got a similar box of spinach that's about yay big, and I'm like, I'm one person. How is that before it's all shriveled up? How is that going to happen? Even juicing, I understand what you mean about the size of things. Sometimes you're like, oh goodness.
At least if you cook the spinach, it will wilt down to not much, so right. It's a little bit more manageable.
It's a little more compressed because in the box it's ginormous. So.
You got to defrag the spinach. Defrag it.
So not only do you get to craft with an amazing professional artist, you also get so many tips and tricks about crafting, painting, and life. And I love how many tips and tricks you have for household things that we may be like quick to throw it in the bin, and then you're like, no, wait, okay, maybe I can use this in another way and give it more life, and just your energy is absolutely amazing. So I cannot wait. I'm so excited. And I hope you guys are all as excited as we are to bring you this amazing class. So make sure to sign up, and we look forward to seeing you there. And thank you, Lindsay, so much for joining us for a quick crafty chat about the class.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. And next time we're going to have to do this in person over coffee.
We always need coffee. Always.
Yeah. Or wine, whatever.
Depending on the time of day. Yes, the downtown that you were referring to.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you all very soon. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Alternate YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye!